Olá pessoal, ligado no Motor 1 Podcast, agora aqui num Cross Motor One, motorsport.com e mais uma vez aqui no estúdio em parceria com a WEC, na WEC, direto do autódromo de Interlagos. Eu tenho aqui Carlos Costa, nosso repórter do motorsport.com, e uma presença ilustríssima internacional, Linda Jackson, presidente da Peugeot Global. Vamos falar em inglês, mas fiquem tranquilos que vamos botar a legenda aqui para vocês acompanharem. Vamos falar de motorsport e também um pouco, claro, de carros aí que estão chegando pelo mundo e pelo Brasil também. Linda, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
It's my pleasure receive you in Brazil. First of all, I think it's very important we talk about WEC.
Yeah.
WEC is a laboratory for Peugeot. What is the importance have WEC for Peugeot and WEC in Brazil for now?
Well, I mean, it's super important. I mean, first of all, WEC for Peugeot is absolutely essential for us. And why? Because it gives us the ability to be able to talk about and go. It's a global, the WEC is a global program. And it's great that we're now able to have this race here in São Paulo because, of course, South America and Brazil are a very, very important opportunity for us and a very important market for us. So on the one hand, that's all about building up the awareness of Peugeot across the world. But the other thing that is really important for us on WEC is, as you quite rightly say, it's a laboratory of technology. So we can develop technology that we can then put on the cars that you and I drive in the street. They're not hypercars. We're not super drivers. But for example, the WEC is all about hybrid cars. And, everything that we're developing, for example, even the battery that we're developing, we can then use that experience and put it onto the hybrid vehicles that we can be offering and we will be offering in the future here, for example, in Brazil. So that's the importance. And going back to Brazil, I mean, it's absolutely great to be here at São Paulo. My first time at this circuit. I'm super excited and I'm just amazed about the number of people that are here and the interest in motorsport here in South America. It's really, really impressive. And it really gives us the opportunity to be able to talk about Peugeot in a different way than simply the models and the cars that we do.
Yeah, definitely. For us, it's very important to have WEC back to our country, first time after 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask specifically about this technology development that such an important championship as WEC can bring to the automotive side of the brand.
Yeah, I mean, for example, within the hypercar, obviously, we've done a lot of work about aerodynamics and we've learned a lot about the suspensions and everything else. So we've been able to use that knowledge. But one of the big things, as I say, is about hybridization.
Yes.
And so, in this vehicle, there is a 900-volt battery that has been developed between ourselves and Saft. And what does that do? Is that we've been able to take that. I'm not suggesting we've got 900 volts on the cars that we go into on the road. That would be amazing. But we've been able to learn so much about the technology and then incorporate that into the technology that we have now for Peugeot and indeed for Stellantis in our hybridization, which means we can offer hybrid cars. I think the other interesting thing is, the fuel that this car runs on, which is developed by TotalEnergies, is a bioethanol fuel, which is actually coming from the residue from French wine. But I mean, but what it is bioethanol is really important. Bio-hybrid, of course, very important in terms of what we've been launching here and will be launching for Peugeot in the future.
That's an interesting information because most people don't know about the fuel that are used in these cars.
Yeah.
And just a quick comparison, I have the impression that nowadays WEC is more important for automotive development in terms of bringing technology to these race cars and then putting them in the road cars than Formula One, for example. It's more applicable, let's put it that way, the technology that is developed in WEC than Formula One.
Certainly that's from what we think. I mean, obviously Formula One is a different ticket of entry. It's a completely different sport, let's be honest. But I think, that's what really made us want to do WEC. Two things, really. First of all, that when you actually look at the awareness of WEC, it's the second after Formula One in terms of the number of people that are interested, the awareness, the interest that you journalists have in it as well, yeah?
Also
so that was
global.
Global. I mean, the fact that, we're here in Sao Paulo in a couple of weeks it'll be in America, another couple of weeks it'll be in Japan. Obviously, we've been in Le Mans in France. That's really, really important. But I think it's going back to the point that you made, is that we know there's a direct link. Hybrid technology, super important for us all as we move along this journey to, basically, we want to be carbon net zero by 2038, which is not just about electric cars, because all regions are in different, speeds in terms of electrification, but it allows us to introduce hybrid cars, which of course are also very, very good in terms of saving CO2.
Personally, do you like ICE car sounds or hybrid cars? So I am very enthusiastic from EV cars. The power, the feeling when we gas throttle, but we know the sound, the older car.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I live in France and I drive an electric car every single day. Yeah, so I drive a car called a 3008, which we just launched, which is pure electric. And it's got 680 kilometers of range, so I have no problem about moving around the country. Yeah, and I love it because it is very reactive, and that's the other thing about electric cars, is that they're very, very reactive, very quick, very agile, and of course it's very silent. Do I miss the sound? I mean, maybe we could create a sound just for those people that really like a sound. I think at the end of the day, it's not about the sound, it's about the performance of the vehicles. And I think when you drive electric vehicles, or when you drive hybrid vehicles, and you know that you're saving CO2, so you know that I hate to say this, but this is what we're trying to do, is save the planet.
Yes.
It's an important mindset change. And in Europe, where we're perhaps a little bit further forward in terms of people driving electric vehicles, once you've driven an electric vehicle, you never want to go back.
Yeah.
Because of all of the advantages. So I think we need to change the mindset, but maybe I just need to introduce a sound to it so that we'd all be okay.
Yeah. For me, some days I want to drive fast. Other days I want to drive calm. So in EV cars, for example, we can use the electric mode and simulated sounds.
Absolutely. And I think people have this impression that if you're driving an electric car that you can't go fast, which, I assure you, I looking at a very famous car that we used to do, which was the 206 GTI, and I think you probably had it here, and 205 maybe. And in fact, the latest version, the electric version of this small car, is faster from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, than the old one was. So the performance is still there. Yeah? So it's a different way of looking at performance.
Yeah, for me, EV cars is the future. I don't have doubt. But in Brazil or each market have
every different speeds. Yeah. And, it's not about the electric vehicles, it's about the infrastructure. Yeah. Can you charge it? And that's what takes the time. And that
you
what
talked
makes
about
the difference.
600 kilometers. In Brazil, it's not that much.
No, but in Europe, that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
If you take it in Europe, we have a pass that offers you access to 600,000 public chargers in Europe. That's what makes the difference. Yeah. And that's what's not there yet in Brazil, and that takes time to build up. It takes time.
Yeah.
And that once you get to that scale, that's what will make the difference, because people are concerned about, can I get from A to B? Yes, of course, maybe if you're going, 1,000 kilometers, you maybe stop once to recharge. But you stop and it's a quick recharge. The latest vehicle that we're introducing, it's 10 minutes to charge 100 kilometers. Super fast. So that's 2 cups of coffee and off you go. Yeah.
If you drink coffee, quickly.
If you drink coffee quickly. If you savor the coffee, it's even better.
Yeah.
I think we have is a good transition for Brazil.
Yeah.
Because we can drive a long distance. And about Peugeot, we will have some model with this technology in Brazil.
Yes. Very, very near future. Exactly.
Very, very near.
How near?
Near.
But that's the tricky question. It's an interesting situation because logistics infrastructure, as you said, I believe it's the main challenge here in Brazil nowadays. So such an important brand and manufacturers, Peugeot, has in a way a challenge because you have to, supply the market that needs a hybrid or old school car, and also have the offer of the guy actually that wants to buy an electric car.
Absolutely.
How does that challenge you guys, thinking about Brazil as much as you can talk
Yeah,
about?
no, I mean, it's is it a challenge? Not really. We have both because we have vehicles available and we're ready, so we can follow the market. So each, as you quite rightly say, each market is in a different speed.
Yes.
And so we have hybrid vehicles come into this market very shortly, and we have electric vehicles already on the ground, and therefore we're in a perfect position. But we will follow the customer, because you have to follow the customer demand. Every market, every customer is on a journey, yeah. And we might think the journey is electric vehicles at the end, but we're all at a different speed. And I think it's important as a manufacturer from Peugeot is that we have both electric vehicles and hybrid on the market so that the customers can choose and take their time. And I think that's a real advantage for us. And as I say, that will be very shortly the case for us.
And in terms of production plants of EVs in Brazil, any specific plan?
Well, again, this is all following the demand.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is no problem with us producing vehicles here, whether they be hybrid or electric, but we need to follow the demand, yeah? And that's what we will do.
With the brand Peugeot, we have the same design, same cars in Europe, in Brazil. Why Peugeot followed this strategy?
Because when I actually look at the statistics of why people buy a Peugeot, whether they be here in Brazil, or whether they be in France, or whether they be in Japan, there are two major reasons. And the two main reasons are they buy it for the exterior design, because that's different from this sort of, let's be honest, there is a little bit of a sea of sameness, yeah? And the second reason is the interior design. And we actually have a much higher score in people loving the interior design, the cockpit, the small steering wheel, than any other manufacturer. So in fact, we can have a global design. We can follow this because that is actually what the customers are asking for in whichever country. Now, of course, the difference is, do you offer electric right now or do you offer hybrid? You obviously sometimes have to change the calibration or the height of the vehicles, of course, here in Brazil, as an example.
Very important here.
Very important. But essentially, I think the world is so small now with social media and you guys on radio and what have you, that everybody can see every cars that are available across the world. And I want to be able to offer the same beautiful design, whether it be exterior and interior, to all of my customers. So I think that's the way that we want to go, rather than have regionalized models, to have something which is a global model, but we adjust in certain areas to the market. As I say, height might be, or it might be, I don't know, sometimes in China they like longer vehicles in the rear. Whatever it may be, we can adapt. But I think that's important. For me, that's the important thing.
In Brazil, it's very similar to Europe in terms of the size of cars.
Yeah.
Now, we have new generation of consumers.
Yeah.
More technological cars, more design, more ecological cars.
Yep.
What's the main challenge to develop a new car for these new clients?
So
and
that
a new
is
appeal.
a new appeal.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really interesting question, because we've done loads of research for customers across the world, and you're absolutely right. And particularly we've done it with Gen Z, Gen Y customers as well, because obviously they'll be the future customers, yeah? And they're looking for three main things. One, they're looking for technology, but technology not for the sake of it. It's technology that helps them, still gives them a pleasure to drive and these sort of things. The second is they're looking for design. They love design. And the third is that they want to have sustainable cars, so recyclable materials, cyclable materials, the ability to ensure that they are saving the planet, yeah? So the way that we design cars and that we're moving towards designing cars is by taking those into account. If you look on YouTube, you'll see a concept called Inception that we actually showed and launched for Peugeot back in the CES show last year at Las Vegas. And that's the direction that we want to go. And that is about sustainable materials. So, for example, we're looking on the next vehicles that we'll be creating, that one of the easiest things is that we take the seats. So they're made out of material. And obviously we make the seat and there's some offcuts. and we're going to use that, press it, etc., to make the carpet. Yeah. So, or we may use the aluminium in the wheels. We'll reuse it, so it's recyclable aluminium. So we're looking at very clever ways to have cyclable material, recyclable material in our cars, which is, of course, absolutely right. We may take the lithium out of the old batteries and put it into the new batteries, so we can recycle batteries. And then
Which is very important.
Which is very, very important to save the raw material. And the other thing that is the technology. In this concept inception, we showed the next evolution of what we call the iCockpit, so the small steering wheel, which will not be a steering wheel anymore. It will be a rectangular, like a gaming, like we have in the 9X8, in fact. It's the inspiration. And that is linked with a technology called steer-by-wire, which means it's an electronic link between the suspension and the steering wheel, which means that you literally drive the car like this. No, like this. If you did that, you'd be doing donuts round and round. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a very clever technology that will enhance the pleasure of driving.
It has to feel good. I was going to
Absolutely,
talk about
because that's what Peugeot is. It's about pleasure of driving.
Yeah.
So we're continually thinking of ways that we can do it. But you're absolutely right. People are looking for sustainability. So the onus is on us to move to cyclable or recyclable materials, making the cars lighter as well. And this technology that we can come up that enhances the experience. And not technology for gadgets and things like that, but technology that really creates pleasure.
Not the gadget for the gadget, but
Not
the
a gadget for a
for
gadget.
the usefulness.
Exactly.
And about battery, because the main question about EV cars in Brazil is what we solve the problem of the old battery. I know the battery, it's very expensive.
Yeah, you cannot simply throw it away, you know?
So that's a really, really important question. And for Peugeot and Stellantis, we have a circular economy strategy. And we call that going from the cradle to the grave. So what does that mean? It means that we start with the battery that we put into the vehicle, but at the end, we can extract the lithium from the battery. So we have two partnerships. Currently in Europe, but obviously will grow into other regions as electric vehicles. So we can take the lithium out of the battery and put it into a new battery, or we can take the old batteries and indeed the old vehicles and recycle them. And a battery can have up to 2 or 3 lives. Yeah, so you can take a battery out of a car and recycle it and put it into another car, or on the third life you can put it into generators for hospitals, for example.
Yes.
And that's what we have as our strategy, which is part of the way that we will get to carbon net zero, because that is what you've got to do. You can't just assume you only use the battery once.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
And that's why we call it from the cradle, from the very start, to the grave, and it goes in a circle. And that's all part of the very, very important strategy that we've got.
It's a very important subject because much of the criticism to EV cars comes from the batteries.
It comes from the batteries, and the other thing it comes from, of course, is the electric green that goes into the electric car.
Yeah.
And that depends on the country you're in.
In our case, it's not such a big deal.
No, but it also depends on, for example, going to carbon net zero by 2038 for our company, isn't simply about selling electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles. It's also about making sure that all of the factories that we have are running in a sustainable way. And that could be anything depending on whether you've got nuclear energy or whether you've got solar panels, etc. And we even have, for example, a paint shop in France that's now running on solar panels, and the electric is coming from the solar panels, so it's green electric. And that's a really important part of that whole strategy.
Oh, very nice, because it's the main question about EV cars in Brazil, and including for government to elevate the tax for EV cars.
Which doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah, any sense. But I hope we can discuss more about EV cars and grow up the sales and the understanding about this new technology.
No, I mean, I think, you're at the we're all at the very start of this journey, aren't we? And we start with hybrid vehicles and then we move on to electric vehicles.
Yeah. Linda, now we have to terminate this.
sadly, unfortunately,
Sadly,
I have
it's
other
very
appointments
fast.
here, but it was a big pleasure.
Oh, it was a great pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much. Thank you.
Obrigado, pessoal. Nos acompanhe nas nossas redes, nossos canais motorsport.com e motor1.com. Agradeço aqui a presença de Linda, presidente global da Peugeot. É isso aí, até mais.